Now, we are joined, our next guest tonight on the program from Holborn by Director of the World Pensions Forum and former advisor to the World Bank, Meher Nicholas Fursley. Hello and welcome to the program. Why haven't US, drinking your coffee there, I can see, why haven't US tariffs, the tariff cuts, lowered global coffee prices yet, Nick?
I think it will take time, and I think we expect too much from the White House, or we blame the White House for things that are beyond its reach, even though, it's true that Trump is partly responsible to what happened being food price inflation. It's partly his fault, but not only. And we expect a lot from him. So if he stops, he had like let's say, an abusive, huge, and very abrupt, the key word here is abrupt. So he slapped tariffs on Brazil, the world's biggest exporter, let's say, of coffee, 45%. It's huge. He did the same, by the way, to Switzerland, the world's largest manufacturer of premium chocolate, right? And just like Brazil, I think 3 days before Brazil, he removed the very high, taxation on Switzerland, on Swiss chocolate, and he went to 45 to 10 or 15%. What I'm coming at, yes, it's abrupt. Yes, it's not very smart from the part of Trump, but it's not only his fault. There are like longer trends. One of them is climate change and the fact that in countries like Vietnam, for example, or Ethiopia, which used to be some of the world's biggest producers and exporters of coffee, flooding, lack of investment in agricultural infrastructure also explains that the yield is mediocre or low, and so supply and demand, the price rises. The same is true in Brazil. Brazil didn't invest enough in agro infrastructure, but Brazil is big and it's still exporting vast quantities of coffee beans to America. Not enough. This is the supply side, but on the demand side, there's much worse. On the demand side, you have new coffee consumers. So, my father's lived and worked in New York City in the late 50s, early 60s. And he told me that there were only 5 or 6 restaurants or cafes in New York City at the time, all of them Italian, where you could have decent coffee. All the rest in America back then, in the late 50s, was filter coffee or tea or whatever. Today, tens of millions of Americans, they drink premium Italian, Brazilian style coffee. Likewise, in India or China, coffee consumption was tiny 20, 30 years ago. Now it's huge. So on the demand side, it's exploding. And you have the same phenomenon, by the way, for olive oil, another Italian Mediterranean staple. Now everyone in America and China and India, they want olive oil. In the middle class or upper middle class wants to have olive oil. So all that, demand is exploding. Supply is not catching up because of a lack of proper investment in infrastructure in the agro business. Why didn't we invest enough in the agro industry? Because the money went elsewhere. So the money went to consumer products, fashion, tech, high tech, and we neglected the number one economic sector, which is agriculture. And adding insult to injury, very blindly, I'm a big supporter of the environment and climate finance. I'm a believer, but the way sort of, to fight climate change, the way the Europeans proceeded in the past 5, 6 years, and the Brits, they proceeded blindly, and they hurt their own coffee growers. Their own, in the south of Italy, in Greece, you have a little bit of, traditional coffee makers, etc. They have made it more difficult for them to produce coffee.
Okay. Now, what people really want to know is when can consumers realistically expect coffee prices to stabilize?
It's a good question. I'm a little cautious. So I think what Trump did last week was good. It will be good for coffee, but also, for meat, right? For meat and, like I said, olive oil, etc. So it's beyond coffee and chocolate. But it will take time because investment decisions, especially when it comes to crops, right? You plant the seeds, metaphorically, you plant the seeds and you yield, you get your hands on the final product 6 months, 9 months, 1 year later. So it is a 1 year plus cycle, not 5 days or 6 days. Likewise, the infrastructure. So, for example, in Brazil, what is missing in Brazil? They haven't invested enough in highways the transportation network of Brazil is a disaster. So both the left in power. So today the left is in power in Brazil. Trump hates them. Trump, constantly mocks them. But even the right was as silly as the left. They have underinvested in transportation infrastructure for the past 60 years.
Okay. Okay, well, that's given us a good unfortunately, we're just out of time. I'm glad that I'm a tea man. I'm a cup of tea man. Rather than a coffee person after that. Thank you, Nick. World Pensions Forum Director, former advisor to the World Bank, Meher Nicholas Fursley, joining us from Holborn. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Indeed.
My pleasure.
Thank you.